So today we're going to look at how to create one of these, as I'd like to call them, fairy bowls from water-soluble fabric, lots of your lovely scraps and the wrappers from all those chocolates you were forced to eat at Christmas. So we've also got glitter, which in my world is obviously essential, and we have 505 spray. The reason for this is you can buy water-soluble fabric which already has an adhesive coating, but it's more expensive. If you don't want to use this, you can just pin your sandwich together. So the first thing you're going to do is take the spray and just spray one part of your circle. You can see I've cut a circle, two circles from the water-soluble fabric. Now the spray says it's odourless, colourless, stainless, spotless, does not gum needles and doesn't contain CFC. But even so, with all these things, still use them in a reasonably well ventilated room. So you're just going to give a light spray, just so there's a slight adhesive surface if you don't want to bother with pins. So now we're going to take all our scraps. Now you can see today I've chosen a purple range because, as you might notice from the hair, it does tend to be one of my favourite colours. So you're just going to basically randomly sprinkle your water soluble with scraps of whatever fabrics or sweet wrappers, even bits of wool all over, until, and just for those of you who do like less is more, this is not a less is more moment. This is fill your sandwich but not completely, so you still have some spaces. I've also got some feathers from an old feather boa here as well that I'm just going to chop up. So now because I know this is going to go through the sewing machine, I'm not using sequins in the sandwich because sometimes they can damage your needle. If you're going to hand sew it, you can of course put sequins in as well. So rather than you sit and see me completely fill this, once it's actually filled, I'm going to move that to one side now because I'll finish filling it later. You're going to take your other piece, lightly spray it again with a 505 and put it on top. So you should now have a sandwich with all your filling inside and everything ready to go. So once you've filled your sandwich, the next thing is to take it to your sewing machine if you're going to sew it by machine and sew it all together. Now when it comes to the sewing, we're not talking neat stitching or particularly straight. What really matters is that all your stitches join up, because as you can see from the finished one, there is no water-soluble fabric visible. So your stitches are holding it together. Now because you see both sides, what I've done with this one is I've stitched it sometimes in gold on one side and sometimes in red, so that you get both colours coming through. So this is now ready for the next stage, which is to put it over a mould to give it its shape. Now for this one I've used a glass, but because I know this one is going to be bigger, I've used a bowl. Now the cling film isn't essential, but if you are worried about being able to get the finished product off your mould, do cling film it. So what we're going to do now is move to the sink because we need the water. So I'm going to take my piece and my glass over to the sink. So we've made our sandwich, we've done all our stitching, now comes the magic bit. Now I've got a bowl here with just a little small amount of warm water. You can use cold water, but it's a bit harder on your hands. So I'm going to dunk my sandwich into the water. Now when the fabric just starts to melt, it will start to feel a wee bit slimy. That's fine, that's normal. So I'm just going to rub it in the water for a minute or so, a few seconds actually, Now you can see what I meant about the importance of the stitching, because there is now no fabric to hold it together. So that should be rinsed enough. So I'm now going to take my mould, which in this case is a glass. You can see I haven't cling filmed it, but like I said, if you are worried, you can cling film it. Now there is still enough of the sort of stickiness in this to actually mould it to shape. So I'm just going to press it into the glass a little bit. Now I quite like the fact that sometimes you get the creases, but if you don't like that, then you have to work it so it's a bit flatter. So then the next thing is just to leave it to dry. Now once it's dry, if you want it to be a bit more permanent, you can spray it with a bit of spray varnish or give it a couple of coats of diluted PVA. You can of course also then add more. You could add sequins on the outside or beads or buttons, whichever you prefer. But there is your finished fairy ball.